Should be good.
There it is.
Okay. Off. So, good morning, everybody. This is Stu Arnett with ADG, and welcome to our 1-hour introduction to NBRC coaching and technical assistance, which we'll refer to as TA. We're going to try to keep our nomenclatures to a minimum, and the session to an hour. ADG is the contractor with New Hampshire Business and Economic Affairs, or BEA, of which Ian is the program manager. And this is our 6th round of NBRC technical assistance coaching we've done with BEA. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been a great chance to work with a lot of great people, but we're still learning because the program keeps moving. And so if you have questions, probably we have questions too. If you filled in a questionnaire at the nbrc-nh.com site, you're in our tracking system, and by doing that, you're eligible for free-to-you technical assistance and coaching help. Our sole purpose on our contract is to help you make your proposal more competitive. Everything we do is confidential, it's optional, and it's advisory, but we don't vote. So there's a point where we can work with you on strategies up to the final application point. But once you go into grants.gov, you go out of our system and you go into the state system. But we're in a fixed fee contract. We're not charging Ian any more or less, or you anything. So ask away. Online also, you can see, is Michelle Morin-Gray, who is hosting this. And we are doing recording, and we'll be providing follow-up documents if anyone asks. We're all learning on how to do this on Teams instead of Zoom, but I think we're doing okay. And I think you probably all know Ian, who is speaking. Ian is the New Hampshire BEA, Business and Economic Affairs Program Manager for the Northern Border Regional Commission, or NBRC program. I think we also have at least one or maybe two coaches on board. You just heard from Charlene a second ago, and I believe we're also going to have NBRC representation if there's questions for them. Just one of the acronyms I think we'll end up using a couple times amongst hopefully not too many is LDD, and LDD is a local development district. That is the Northern Border's term for different regional groups that are certified to help with grant administration. In New Hampshire, there are 6 LDDs. 5 are regional planning commissions, as is the North Country Council, and 1 is an economic development not-for-profit. And those are all listed on the NBRC website. And we'll explain their role here in a second. Note that NBRC will also host 2 additional sessions. The first one tomorrow, the 13th, and then Friday the 15th. And registration for those are both on their website under a heading called Pre-Application Resources. And I think we can probably put that link up here in a minute. And because of the abbreviated timeline of this whole application process, due to no fault to anybody on this line, but because of all the federal uncertainty, all these sessions are going to be intentionally short. As Ian said, we're going to try to tuck it into an hour. But prior deeper dive webinars are available on NBRC's site that go into much more detail. And of course, we're all available to answer questions. Quick introduction again to NBRC. The NBRC has 4 distinct funding programs. Our contract is to offer TA and coaching for 2 of these. The first is the flagship, which is Catalyst. It's the one that is probably the most used and the most flexible. And the second one is a newer program. It's a more focused, and that's called Timber for Transit. And we'll often just refer to it for ST for T. But we can also answer some questions and make referrals for the other 2, which are Forest Economy and Workforce Opportunity, something. It's the Department of Labor Workforce Development. Slide 2. So 3 steps, pretty simple that way. A required pre-application, a full application, and the award. And then if and when awarded, the whole implementation grant administration. Pre-application is, I think everybody may know is August 29. That date has not moved. And the pre-application will be presented or enter the same place that the application is, and we'll show you that in a second. If you're invited back to do a full application, same place, and then award process we'll talk about here in a minute, but 3 distinct steps. Next. So how to apply, you can go directly to the NBRC website and do everything there. There's as I mentioned, there's the 2 upcoming training sessions tomorrow and Friday. They also have a pre-application assistance website, and they have set up office hours, but you can bypass the coaching technical assistance if you want to go directly to NBRC for your assistance. You will need to go to the online website to apply for either pre-app or app. The second thing is what we're doing right now, which is the coaching, advising, strategizing through the coaching TA contract. There's our intake site again. If you haven't done the intake and the questionnaire, again, we would advise doing it because we've not only seen better results with it, but also allows Ian to track this better so we don't let anybody fall between the cracks as things get busier as we get closer to the deadline. In addition to the coaching, advising, strategizing, that's where we are trying to make your proposal as competitive as we can. We're trying different ideas with you. Then there's technical assistance, which is, as the term indicates, questions that are more technical in their nature. So they're not an evaluation, but does this rule mean this? Does it mean that? Does this match or does that match? Is it this column or that column? You can get your answers for technical assistance from the program manager. Ian has his email on the site. Coaches can provide some of that, and also at admin@nbrc.gov. They're very helpful at getting back with technical assistance on things like eligibility and how long do certain things have to be owned and all those wonderful things. The third kind of section is what I'm calling the help 911 things. And that's the last 1 or 2 days before the submission. And that's saying, I can't get this form to open, or the thing saying it's too many characters or whatever it is. Again, admin@nbrc.gov. They're very on top of things, very helpful. And or if you can't find an answer soon enough, or if we can answer it so they don't have to, you can ask your coaches. So those are sort of the 3 steps. Next, please. So quickly, an outline of what the pre-application is. It's basically a test for eligibility and completeness. You have to use the grant management system, the public site that's indicated there on the visual. Once it goes in, you have to wait to apply. You have to be invited to apply, and that invitation comes out sometime, somewhere like a month or so after the pre-application goes in. That means that from beginning of September to the October deadline, we have time to add to or improve what you put in the pre-app. So the pre-app doesn't have to be everything you want to say with attachments and that sort of thing, but it does have to be complete, and you have to demonstrate your eligibility. So then for the next step is the full application once invited. Again, using the same grant management system, you can revise and update up until the last minute. You can pull documents out and stuff. And then again, coaching remains available up until 4:59 on October 10th. I think the last time we answered our last question about 4:58 before the deadline. But the coaching is available up until submission of the application. Then you hopefully here you get an award, and you now are in the NBRC BEA world. Just a point I'm sure Ian's going to bring up again, but it really is an important one, is getting an award. Notice is wonderful, but it is not the key. The key is something called notice to proceed, which comes later. So just a little thing, don't start spending grant or match funds until that happens. Once you get an award, grant administration help is available. Your LDD is available and is required to help you unless you ask for a waiver while you submit the application. And the fee they get from that is paid out of the grant. And again, our coaching ends with the submission, 501 on the 10th, unless you decide to pursue funding for the next round. We have had different projects that have gotten close and said, I think we're not ready, let's roll over to the next one. So that's kind of the bigger steps. With that, I'll kick the next one over to next slide. And with that, I'll introduce Ian and open the Q&A up, the presentation, and then Q&A. So Ian, thanks.
All right, thank you, Stu. Yeah, so Q&A will come. I'm going to make sure that we have some time. I've got a slide deck. Don't worry about taking deep notes. We're going to get you a copy of it. Especially there's a reference section at the end that's going to have a lot of the key links you're going to need. Can I go ahead and screen share? Can I take this from you? That's the one. Are we seeing a lovely picture of a sign on the 4th Connecticut Lake? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes.
So yeah, welcome. This is a bit of an orientation to the process. I want to call attention to this note down here. If you find any discrepancy between this information that I've put together and what you're finding in the official NBRC documentation, I defer to them since they are the main logistics here.
Me too.
What's our goal? Our goal for today, have an understanding of what the Northern Border Regional Commission, or NBRC, is. Talk a little bit about timeline, process flow. I want to highlight how we define economic development and what a project is within that framework. Show you some stuff about each of the grant programs. Talk a bit about the scoring, which I think is going to be pretty important. And then offer a couple of best practices. So here's your quick overview. The NBRC, or Northern Border Regional Commission, is a congressionally created federal-state partnership. It's one of 8 regional commissions in the country. The first one was the Appalachian Regional Commission. Their goal is rural economic development, and they do that primarily through grant programs and other partnership initiatives. Stu mentioned work with the Department of Labor. A little bit about roles. So I'm the state program manager. What's my job? It's to look for projects, to talk to you about what's competitive and what isn't. Ultimately, I score those projects and then I present them to my upper ups, who then put them forward to the vote and do all that kind of stuff from there. The BEA's role in this, they're the host of the state portion of that federal state partnership. I've got a whole team here, so if NBRC ultimately isn't the best option for your project, I have people that I can send you over to who might have other thoughts, other resources, and things like that. They host the BEA. We host the TA program, obviously the state program manager, and we link state priorities into this process. The NBRC is the federal side of that federal state partnership, and they are the general logistics and administration of the whole thing. They do for-state coordination, they manage the post-award process, and in fact, the application process through their grants management system. So that's a little bit about the roles, and hopefully a better sense of who to go to for different items. Process flow. Right now, we're in a little bit of the pre-development technical assistance. So we're showing you how the thing works. We're going to talk you through some best practices, all those sorts of things. I'm happy to talk to people right up to the pre-application deadline. At that point, I'm scoring. And so I believe I get, through the GMS, you'll get like one more comment from me on the pre-app side. But there's a division there that's going to happen. You can continue to talk to Stu and the technical assistance crew, and obviously to anybody on the NBRC. Pre-application, as Stu noted, that's an eligibility and alignment check. Full application, that's where we're really going to nail down competitiveness, ranking folks by score, and then ultimately voting for award. If you're awarded, your first step is an obligation of the funds that officially labels the money as for your project. You can backdate expenses. If you're working with your LDD for grant administration, you can backdate them to that obligation date. And then in big bold, don't spend your match at that point. You really need to wait for at least the partial notice to proceed and the full notice to proceed. These grant programs operate on a reimbursement basis, so you'll submit basically an invoice and say we'd like paid back for this amount, and you'll document what match was used at that time in order to get reimbursed. From award, you've got a year to obtain a notice to proceed. I'll pretty much categorically give an extension because there's all sorts of things that come up, environmental things, and just talk to me if an extension is needed. By the second extension, we need to have a deeper conversation, but that's a general outline. And then from your notice to proceed, that's the big thumbs up. You actually get to start executing project activities and expending funds and all that fun. Timeline, pre-apps are going to be due August 29th at 5 p.m. And then if you're invited, your full application will be due October 10th at 5 p.m. I highly, highly, highly recommend set that maybe a day earlier. The GMS is great. It does occasionally throw errors, and people have to work around that. I've had people unable to submit on time because of yes, correct. Stu notes extensions are not for the due dates. That's for after if you're awarded. I'd try to get it in early, just in case there is some type of system error or problem. We've had people try to submit at the last minute and then slow internet, and they wind up past the deadline. So just be aware of that. In December is probably when we'll have the voting meeting, and so you'll know either by late December or early January which way the fall round broke for you. Where do I want to start? Start with validating that you're an eligible entity, doing work in an eligible area, and that your project fits funding priorities. If you have a rough idea but aren't sure entirely yet, I would say definitely go talk to Stu, nbrc-nh.com. That's where you can get technical assistance. And if you've got questions about eligibility, if you're maybe an edge case and you're trying to figure out if you really fit or not, you can talk to me. But the more technical it gets, the better it is to just go ahead and email admin@nbrc and say, hey, is this something we can do? So why use technical assistance? It helps us keep track of you and send you updates and reminders and all that sort of thing. And historically, TA correlates with successful awards. I don't necessarily know if you received TA or not when I'm scoring. It just happens to be that the folks who, their eyes are pretty close on this program tend to give pretty good advice about how to write to the scoring criteria and get your project through. 2 slides only on economic development. Economic development is not anti-poverty programs. I'm a big fan of anti-poverty programs, but they're a different thing. They're more focused on alleviating symptoms of economic distress. What we're trying to do is to develop capacities and to expand capabilities to put more money in more pockets over time, or the improvement of systems that results in that outcome. And if you go and look at the key performance indicators for the NBRC, it's things like new businesses started or businesses retained, new jobs created or jobs retained, decreasing costs, increasing private investment. So these are all kind of the focus is always going to be on economic development with Catalyst, and that's not necessarily the same thing as doing nice things in your community. It's a Venn diagram, right? And we want that economic development side. Projects, by that we mean a planned series of efforts, and you're shooting for a particular outcome. There's a discrete start, a discrete stop, and there's things you're producing. I personally find a logic model to be a really useful tool to organize my thinking around projects. Your planned activities should all link together and then result in the outcome you're trying to do. And then one of the key pieces, your budget line items should be able to relate to and support your planned activities. So just making sure there's kind of this alignment of here's what we're trying to do and here's the money we need to do it. kind of an odd place for this note, but as we're talking about budgets and planning and things like that, infrastructure projects, if you build something using NBRC dollars, it's going to attach a notice of federal interest. What that basically means is, one second. What that basically means is that federal dollars were used to build something or to improve something, and so they want to make sure that it continues to be used in line with the intent. So, and you can look in the user manuals for more information about that. Who's eligible to apply? State and local government, planning commissions and other authorities of the state, 501c organizations, and yes, as Stu notes in the chat, that notice of federal interest also applies to real estate if you're building or purchasing property. Our final eligible entity is federally recognized tribes, which unfortunately we don't have any in New Hampshire. But that's your breakdown of eligible entities. Eligible areas, we work in a lot of the state, not just people here in Northern Border, and they think all the way up in Coos. Coos is in the service area, but so is Sullivan, Cheshire, Belknap, Carroll County. Merrimack was added this past year, and then parts of Grafton County are eligible to apply. We do not work in Stratford, Rockingham, or Hillsborough County. With that geographic location is a split of local match to project funds. The 80-20 split, so 80% of the project can be NBRC grant money, 20% would be local match. That holds true in Coos and Sullivan County. The rest of the state is a 50-50 split. Local match can take a lot of forms. It's not just cash in hand. It's things like, let's say you're trying to build, I don't know, an addition on a daycare, and some local business donates 2x4s to help you in that effort. That's a local match. You can, local match also doesn't have to just be local dollars. You could pursue other grant programs, other forms of philanthropy to cover it. One of the key pieces to know is that there's a limit of 80% of the total project cost can come from federal sources for the NBRC. So if you break above that, then match might be ineligible to be used. So you just want to watch those proportions and ask the question, is this considered local, or is this considered federal, if you're not sure? Okay, so here's the programs. This is a cut down from the prior run of this presentation. I've put in links, so when you get the slide deck, you can just click on that link and it'll take you directly to the user manual. There's 3 main grant programs: Catalyst, Forest Economy, and Timber for Transit. We're mostly focusing on Catalyst here, but within each of those, Catalyst and Forest Economy, there's infrastructure projects and there's non-infrastructure projects. Timber for Transit is a little different. You can look at feasibility. You can study, could we use timber products in this application? There's implementation, where you're actually using timber products for an application. And then you can combine those, where you check to see, will this work? And then if it will, you go ahead and actually implement the project you've designed. What sorts of things are they looking for? Infrastructure projects, transportation, basic public infrastructure. That's your water, wastewater, electrical. It also includes things like public meeting spaces, and then telecommunications. And by that, they mean community scale telecoms. For non-infrastructure, Catalyst has feasibility studies now. You can do, one use of that, for example, was looking at engineered plans had to be put together for a park renovation in order to access a different funding source. And so a town applied for feasibility dollars, got it, and are now working on using NBRC funds to then unlock a greater amount of funding to actually do their park renovation. Workforce development, business development, basic healthcare, and then resource conservation, tourism, and recreation. Those are your main Catalyst non-infrastructure categories. Under Forest Economy, community development work, workforce development, business development, and there is actually a specific call out for marketing and communications, but that has to link you have to have, a workforce development project that also needs marketing and communications dollars, for example. Scoring. The main categories are aligning with priorities, how project readiness, we're looking for, our ideal is that something is shovel ready. It's ready to go once it gets funding. Clear economic development benefits and laying that out with data. I highly recommend talking to ADG. This is their bread and butter. Leveraging local and regional resources and assets. If you're bringing partners to the table, if there's something local that you think is special and that you're amplifying with this project, let us know about that. Community buy-in. It's really important to show, if you're working with municipal property, that the municipality knows that and that they are comfortable with funds being used for that, for, let's say a renovation or something like that. Other things include select board votes, permitting. You don't have to have finalized permitting if that's not a requirement, but that's just an example of the sorts of things you can use to demonstrate community buy-in. And then letters of support. For that, I would note max 3 to 5, and please don't send boilerplate. I do read those letters, and so when I'm on my 5th copy of the same letter, it gets harsh. But I love reading people in your community who value your work and show me kind of different perspectives and views on what they think it'll do for the community. The need for NBRC funding, that's something you're going to want to talk about. Why NBRC when there might be other options? And then you can look at the user manuals in the appendix. You'll see NBRC's scoring criteria, which is 50 points, and New Hampshire's scoring criteria, which is 50 points. Together, it's a score out of 100. So I would check out both of those. Our criteria in New Hampshire it's articulates versus demonstrates. Articulates, you tell me about it. You say, we strongly believe that with funding, this is what's going to happen. Demonstrates would be, there's this other community that's very similar to ours. They implemented a program like this, and these were the outcomes. We expect something similar. Articulates is you talk about it. Demonstrates is you put data up under that argument to say, this is, strongly likely to be the outcome. And then readiness versus competitiveness. A project can be eligible and ready, and then ultimately not be very competitive. And that's okay. Competitive is when you may actually even get through with a project that's ready but not particularly competitive, depending on funding availability for that round. Competitive, which becomes more important when we've got lots of applicants and limited funds. You really want to align with multiple levels of priorities. You want to score well, obviously. You want to be able to show the funding need and the local support. And then you also want to be able to lay out how, you're the organization to do this. You've got the capacity and the know-how. Some examples around readiness and competitive and how this could turn out. I've scored 2 rounds so far with very different kind of financials to it. In one, we had $16 million in requests and only $9 million in funds. So there were really good competitive projects that we just didn't have the money to fund. In the subsequent round, I think I had somewhere around $12 million in funding available, and ultimately we only had $7 million in requests. So there were projects that were ready to go, not necessarily competitive in the prior round, but were able to get funding in the subsequent round because of that difference of available funds versus requests. Which is another way of saying if you wind up not being able to get through, I love doing that kind of after action to talk through why that was the case. It's not as helpful when my answer is, we just had a lot of really good projects and unfortunately ranked by score, this wasn't your round. But sometimes I can offer useful commentary to come back in with a stronger proposal. Ongoing process and engagement. So with the application process, more than anything, I would connect with technical assistance, nbrc-nh.com. I'm going to say it lots of times so that you remember it. That's where you access technical assistance. Stu Arnett, Michelle here. They'll help you improve, not even necessarily improve, they'll help you translate your project into the language that's going to land most effectively with me as a scorer and with NBRC. On that point, talk to me. I'm happy to review projects, walk you through what I think is strong, what I think could be improved. And there's that point about letters of support, 3 to 5, no boilerplate, please. After award, you want to keep everybody in the loop. Probably the only real issue is when people disconnect and we can't get a hold of them. If you're going to deviate from your original project in any way, at least shoot an email over to admin@nbrc and find out if you need to file anything about that. And there's always forms. I believe the next page, yeah. So working with the NBRC, they're a federal entity. They operate through rules, documents, and processes. Rules, check out the user manual and really try to digest that. Documents, there is most likely a form for that. So you want to make sure that you're using the appropriate form if one is available. And then the rules and documents help reinforce the process. There's a way that we're trying to get people through. And so try to understand it and slip into it with the least trouble for yourself possible. If you're the authorized official, please stay in communication. Include your grant number if you do get awarded, and then when in doubt, ping admin@nbrc. And then finally, in bold, don't ask for forgiveness later. There have been situations where money went out from an organization and then they were unable to get reimbursed for that expense, and it created problems for them. Federal grant program. Stay in communication and ask before you make a move. Okay, and so I'm going to quickly move through these references, and that's going to end the part of me talking. And then we're going to open it up to any questions and go from there. So references, there's a document checklist here for your application. These are forms that are in the grant management system, but you've got a link you can click to go through there. Some of them apply, some of them don't. Just a lot of people don't have that disclosure of lobbying activities, for example. But if you're a nonprofit, you are going to need to show information around that, things like that. Another set of that list, some of these I was able to put in a nonprofit organization has to show that IRS determination letter, current good standing and all of that. Waivers, if you, the 75% expenditure waiver, if you've previously been awarded and you're coming back in, you either have to have expended 75% of the prior award, or you're going to need to get a waiver in order to apply again. The significant benefit waiver says, hey, we are an entity that is outside of the service area. Our project is going to benefit communities within the service area. So we are although we are outside, we are bringing a significant benefit here, would be the way to think about that. And then finally, the LDD waiver. Your local development district will help you with grant administration. Some places don't need that. They've handled federal grants before, and so they just say we'd rather not work with anybody else. We'll handle it in-house. That's your LDD waiver. These are going to go in at the same time as your pre-application. Post-award, if you get there, here's a little checklist of items you're going to need to get that federal obligation. And then a checklist of other items for your partial notice to proceed and your full notice to proceed. So if you do make it to award and you're trying to figure out where you stand, this is still a reference you can go back and check to say, oh, yeah, that's right, we didn't actually finish up the LDD contract. And that'll help guide you on what you might need. Compliance stuff, very important. I'm not going to go too deep into that, but links again to there's a grant admin and compliance manual that you can look through that the NBRC put together. some information about the National Environmental Policy Act. As a general rule there, if you're moving dirt, you're going to have a harder time with NEPA than not. So we can talk about that and get you ahead of it. Federal dollars, you have to abide by Build America, Buy America Act. So, and there are some limited waivers and things for that, but you can read more about it through that link. And then there's some other standard forms and things for, putting in amendments or requesting reimbursement, and all of that's available on the NBRC website. So now we open it up to any questions. My contact information is down here at the bottom. And I will stop sharing. Maggie. Maggie, you can go ahead and come off mute and ask your question. Okay. Maggie's working on that. Joseph, if you want to pop off.
Hi, thanks. This has been really helpful. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that partnership between the town and the LDD, as far as if a town were considering whether to go for a waiver, what's typically included, or is it something you could speak to? What's typically in those contracts? Is it an automatic 1%? Determining the costs, some of those details?
Sure. So it's 2% of the total grant award, and I'm actually going to defer over to Michelle because she's done so much more of this and can definitely answer this question better than me. If you could jump in and talk.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So the services there is an example in the compliance manuals to what that contract looks like, and it typically it varies a little bit depending on the LDD, but typically it's the second set of eyes on your reimbursement requests, on your progress reports, your financial progress reports. It may be asked, pointing you to the right direction in compliance or answering questions that as a grantee maybe you haven't run into with NBRC in their project. For the LDD fee, anything over a certain percent of the grant is 2%, and then there's a new formula for that, and I'll look it up for you. But under that is a flat fee,
like 4,000 as a flat fee or something, and then 2% over something. Yeah. So
I'll pull it up for you.
And Joseph, I think the test is, can you show experience your organization? By the way, the funds are not matched, so it isn't free in a sense that if you've already hit your cap, it means your cap comes down a little bit. But it's we also have Todd's on the line. He's typing. Who's another LDD who's done a lot of this work. It's typically, I think, a pretty good investment. But
and Sarah Lang,
Thanks, Sarah.
Hold that information up.
That's great. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Good deal. Okay. Well, Maggie, looks like you're off mute now.
Yeah, it only took me 5 minutes. Thanks. I have several questions. One is a very practical question. As I'm new to this process, as I look at the pre-application and the 1 to 2 paragraphs to describe what they are seeming to ask for a lot of information in. Do you have any advice about, how you fit something compelling into a paragraph when it's then asked us to make sure we have X, Y, and Z in there?
Yeah. So I would recommend writing as much as you would like and as much as you see is like needed to get your point across, and then go to that scoring criteria and highlight where you're articulating or demonstrating each item. And then anything that's not highlighted, try to delete and really bring it down in. It's, the scoring criteria is going to be broadly built around data. I came up in the nonprofit world. I love a good heartstring story, but it's ultimately going to come down to, are you hitting KPIs? Do you align with funding priorities? All of that. So limiting,
Okay.
limiting the, you know, the way that you convince me as a scorer is by meeting the scoring criteria. So I would just keep putting that up to try to pare down
Okay.
to.
That is essentially what we've done. We had a
Yep.
lot of words and now we're crunching them down. The definition of infrastructure, our project is in Claremont and we are looking to repurpose an underutilized historic church. And the biggest chunk of the grant request will be for sprinkler system and for HVAC that makes it usable for many different activities throughout the year. Plus efficient that is currently not. When you say public meeting space, this project would turn this church into a public meeting space. So would those kind of expenses fall under infrastructure? And I guess that's the end of my question.
Yeah. So good question. The goal is to show, we have a public meeting space. We expect it to have these benefits for the community, even if it's just a place where like small businesses can meet or activities can be run or things like this. That's the kind of, I use the needle and thread analogy. That's the needle that's going to pull along the improvements that you need to make. So for example, HVAC. We're in the middle of an awful heat wave. I can imagine, let's say it's there's a public meeting space and a seniors club meets in this area. They're certainly not meeting when it's 90 degrees out unless there's that good HVAC system. And so that's a good example of connecting a budget item to an activity. We have this thing we're doing and we're trying to do HVAC for this reason, that we can do it all through the year. People have made the same argument around warming. The middle of winter, this lodge is the only place with wood fire. So all else can go wrong in the community. People can come to the community center and they'll still be warm. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
That does fit the basic public infrastructure, public meeting space priority.
And the last one for now is, when you are working with a small nonprofit like we are, the Well Collaborative, we don't have money in the bank to put forth the money before we get reimbursed. So is it conventional to get a bank to work with us to basically do bridge loans? What do organizations do when they don't have $500,000 in the bank?
Right. I'm gonna actually defer that question probably again to Michelle. So Michelle has North Country Council is an LDD. So is Todd, who's on here, and so I think they can speak a little bit better to some of the strategies that people use to make that bridge.
Yeah, so in most cases, if cash flow is going to be a challenge with an organization just due to size, it is, you'll have to get a line of credit in order to do that. I have seen some organizations, if they're purchasing, if it's like a one-time purchase and it's a piece of equipment, so an expensive piece of equipment, they have worked out with the vendor where they can do it in different, like 4 types of payments over, a period of time, so that you have enough money to make one payment and then you get reimbursed from NBRC and then you go on through that process. That's not ideal. So ideally it's getting a line of credit in order to make the cash flow work for you.
Thank you.
Ian, I answered half of Todd's question about I think the other half, you could take care of that one.
Yeah, let me jump in on that one. So Todd, when you say feasibility, are you talking about feasibility under Catalyst or under the Timber for Transit program?
I believe it's a child care project.
Catalyst. Okay. Feasibility is, they broke that out as a category to allow for just feasibility projects. I think you could write to, if I had to offer a thought on it, I would say go ahead and write as feasibility and implementation under Catalyst, and then you can amend after award if, like, let's say feasibility shows like, yeah, this just isn't going to work. Amendments can include things like a reduction in the overall award if that's something, you said, I don't know, we're going to study the building of a bridge, and then we're going to build this bridge, and then ultimately you find out, well, the embankment here is completely unstable and there's no way we can build a bridge. You could have that you could amend to cover that feasibility work and then drop off the actual construction, but that would probably go with a drop in overall award as well.
But is it 2 applications, Ian, you're saying, or would it be go in for implementation and back down to feasibility
if it shows it's not going to work?
Okay, how about the other way? If feasibility is good, then you'd come back the next round.
Right. So there's 2 ways I think you could break it. You could put in for the full project and assume everything's going to go really well on that feasibility study, or you could play it safe, run your feasibility, and then come back in for a subsequent round. I think there's a lot of things that could come into that, like timeline, degree of confidence you have about how well this is going to work, all of those different things. So that's a non-answer. I'll call myself out for that, but those are the considerations I'd bring in.
And Ian, again, on everything you say here, you've got to put an asterisk saying it all depends. But speaking in the next round, you want to give us any current thinking?
Yeah, in respect to overall state priorities.
In other words, if people are talking about, do I roll over to the next round? How are we feeling about spring 2026?
Right. So obviously in the current landscape, everybody's concerned about are we going to have funding? Increasingly confident to the point of I say yeah, probably, almost certainly. Yes, we're going to be funded. We're watching appropriations go through. It is notable I expect us to become an increasingly competitive program over time because of the dwindling of other sources. So if you've got a very competitive project and you're confident about that, I think either one's good. If you are worried about funding, I think we're going to be here. And then I would say if you're ready enough now, it might be wiser to come in 2025 before the full kind of impact of some of these changes really starts trickling out.
And Ian, just to follow up, having somebody come in and not be awarded is not a problem coming back, correct?
Not a problem at all. Out to and including, you can copy and paste. And that's where, if you ultimately don't get awarded, definitely contact me. I'm happy to walk you through how things went. I'll break out the scoring sheet. And sometimes the answer will just be, it was a really competitive round. Go ahead and come back in with the exact same stuff next time, and or we can talk about improvements if you're trying to increase competitiveness and all that. Amber, got a question?
Hi, Ian. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yeah, gotcha.
All right. So one of the projects that I'm looking to put in for was an NBRC project from 2018 that was a bridge. The bridge has failed. It was engineered, DES was involved. It was installed the way that it was supposed to. But is there anything holding me back from reapplying for funds to get that bridge fixed again?
No, and I would say noting that it's in the same location and that you're trying to solve the same problem, the central question will be, what are the lessons learned and how is this time going to be different? But you're North Country ATV, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we've seen the flooding and kind of some of these unexpected things. So,
Okay.
yeah, coming back in, I would. Go ahead, sorry.
If I was to do that under the Timber for Transit, I need to put in for the engineering and all of that, the wetland scientist and the structural engineers. That's all stuff that I can build into the grant, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Right.
Ian or Stu, do you want to mention that the process for procurement in that case and the timing? Like if they sought an engineer right now for some initial thoughts, I believe that person could not compete.
Yeah, so it depends on, in general, if MBRC dollars are, thank you for that. That's a good note. In general, if MBRC dollars are going to wind up in a private business's hands, you're probably going to have to go through a competitive bidding process. That can be a real pain for people that they've got an engineering firm they like and that they've been working with to get to the point of even being able to apply for funds. But there's going to have to be a documented competitive bidding process anytime once post award. Even if you've been working with them, if they're going to be receiving MBRC dollars, there's going to have to be that competitive rebid. So the timing of and scope of work for people that you're currently working with, I would incorporate that fact that they may not be able to transition smoothly into the actual conduct of the project, or at least accounting for how there's going to be a bid process that happens.
Yeah, so if you need to buy anything or utilize volunteer time that you can postpone until after your notice to proceed, you can use it for match. If you use it before your notice to proceed, it's not either reimbursable or eligible for match.
Yep. Let me give one of the saddest emails I've ever gotten was somebody very excited to tell me about how they just purchased or they just had donated officially paperwork signed this building, and they'd put in stuff to start working on it, and it was immediately post award before they'd had any notice to proceed or even, I believe, a grant agreement. And so they wound up losing out on a lot of match that could have helped.
You gave him a mulligan, didn't you? Ian, on that, you could say, give it back, and then we'll, come on. You could have handed it back to him and just said, no, it's very clear. MBRC is very clear about do not spend money or use match before the notice to proceed.
Yep. Looks like Maggie's typing. If they're
and
That's...
Maggie is sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Stu.
No, go ahead.
So in general, one of the things to note about property that's improved with MBRC funds or equipment that's purchased or anything like that, the sticking points are you fulfilling the kind of obligations created by your application? If you're doing that and you check that box off, then yeah, the same materials can be used for other things. And then the limiter on that on the other end is you can't be accruing private business benefit to people for the use of it. So let's say I don't know, I'm a CTE director and I put in to purchase a lathe with NBRC dollars, and it is used for this program that we're putting on, but then I also come in after hours and I like do machine work for pay. That would be a problem. But you know, presumably the church is some form of nonprofit and maybe even their activities are in alignment with your project activities, I don't expect that would cause a conflict.
The fact that it's a faith-based is not either add or subtract. It's as long as it's a registered not-for-profit.
Yep, correct.
It'd be one of the uses, right?
Okay. Got 2 minutes left, so I think I'm just going to close us out on this. If you'd like to meet with me, I chat with people up through the pre-app deadline. Then I'm scoring, so I will cease communications with you. I'm happy to talk about competitiveness and things, and to even offer some limited thoughts on design. But again, I'm scoring. I can't be telling you how to write the thing and then also scoring it. That's where ADG comes in, and they can help you with that deeper design work if that's something you're looking for. And otherwise, we're right here.
Yeah, and I appreciate the reference. 2 or 3, Todd, Michelle, Charlene, maybe a 4th person on board. So we'll get you in front of the right person for help on that. So great.
All righty.
I think Amber has one more question, maybe.
And by the way, I hope
Come off
everybody
mute
saw.
now.
I think everybody saw the signups for tomorrow and Friday for the NBRC sessions. We did send that link.
Yep.
Amber, I think you're up.
Can you just, Ian, what is your email address again? I was looking back and I can't find it.
Yeah, no
Can
problem.
you just
And
share it?
depending on when we first started talking, you might have an old name too. Dropping it in the chat now. .nh.gov. There you go.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks everybody. Tight 1 hour. Thanks for
Stay
attending.
cool.
Stay
Nice
cool.
seeing everybody again. Thanks, Michelle, for hosting.
Absolutely.
Thanks.